Hello, my name is Nick Simon, and this is my final project for BA 513, Information Technology and Data Analytics. Um, as you can see, my topic is, does wearing a mask actually help mitigate the spread of COVID-19, which was one of my first questions that I posed to myself. I was researching, trying to find different topics. I really couldn't nail down anything that was interesting. After looking through the data set that was provided for us from Tableau, I searched through that data and looked at the raw data, and I still couldn't really find a topic that I thought would be fun with just those data sources. So I chose to search on the internet. Um, Never really found any website that actually had data, but I did find a website, maskforall.com, and they actually showed each state that required a mask mandate, what date uh, they implemented it, and whether or not counties within the state were actually mandating, so not the whole state, but just counties within states. For instance, Nebraska, they only required employees that go to work to wear a mask. So I chose to, in order not to skew my data visualization, to exclude all of those states. I just wanted to focus primarily on states that required the full state to have a mask, and that's it. And may I also mention I left out Washington, D.C. as it's not a state. Um, so after I got that data, I posed two questions to myself. As already mentioned, does wearing a mask mitigate the spread? But also, do states that don't have mask mandates, um, do they have lower or higher positive cases than states that do? If they're not requiring a mask, then I guess off the cusp, you would think that they don't have that many cases. Maybe it's not that big of a problem in the state. Um, we will soon find out. Okay, so this worksheet right here just shows total new positive cases for states that do and states that don't have a mask mandate. Now, as you can see over here, California, um, they were obviously one of the first states um, to have an influx of COVID-19 within their citizens. Um, so they implemented their mask mandate on June 18th. So if we scroll down here to June 18th, they had 63.6, 64 total new cases per day, which was kind of getting out of the hand, and they already had 4,000 cases. If we scroll down here, obviously it's starting to get worse. We'll soon tell the story. However, this is where my second question, which was, do states that don't have a mask mandate order have lower or higher positive case counts than states that do have a mask mandate? I stopped right here after this worksheet and thought to myself, I don't have population data, so how can I actually represent this accurately? And I don't think I can without population data. So this is where I chose to stop and only focus on states that do have mask mandates, because we should be able to see trends over time to see if they work. Okay, so this slide right here um, shows different states that have a mask mandate. So the states in blue, they all have mask mandate orders. The states that don't are the ones that are in yellow. So one thing that I found that was really interesting at looking at this after I put this worksheet together is that, although it's no surprise, all the states that have mask mandate orders, which are in blue, as I mentioned, are bordering the United States, which typically, or not typically, they actually have a higher population count than Middle America. I found that interesting, excluding Florida. Okay, so this worksheet is a tree map that I created, and it really does paint a big picture, I believe. Um, Now, as you can see on the bars, so for New Jersey, for instance, um, they have 42.25 average cases per day. And I should say, I should mention this, that this data starts from 12/31/19. So some states don't even have cases until some states don't even have cases until March or April. So that's kind of why the average case count seems relatively lower than what it should be, especially when looking at the positive case count. Okay, so this graph right here was really fun to create, and I thought it really told just a really good story about whether or not a mask actually helps mitigate the spread of COVID-19. Okay, so I'll just start off here with Kentucky, because I live in Kentucky. I find it rather interesting. So their mask mandate date was on the 10th. Okay, so their mask mandate date was on the 10th. I think it would be easier to follow along, although we can see what's going on here. Does the mask really mitigate the spread? So, as we know, it takes 14 days to, if you have symptoms, to where you won't be able to spread it to someone else. So, we would think that if they implemented the mask mandate on July 10th, that by July 25th, which would be the 15th day, that we should see cases start to go down if the mask actually helps mitigate the spread. Um, but what we can also infer from this too is that cases are going to go up within that 15-day window because people weren't wearing masks. So we can expect that. And when we look here and see on the 16th, which is only 6 days after, it peaks. That was their highs. Cases per day. They had 469 new positive cases that day, which is huge, especially for the population size of Kentucky. Okay, so now we go over here. This is the 25th. Okay, so now if we look where that dot is over here, they have 776 cases uh, on the July 25th, which is 15 days after, as I mentioned. 6.3 average cases per day versus the 11 versus the 4.1. However, we also see it start to spike here, and then it goes down, and then it goes back up, and then it goes back down again. So clearly, what that means, what the data is telling us, is that the mask does actually work. It works from here. I believe it is working. However, I believe there's some other things in the data that we can't. There's some things within this that we can't explain with data, such as, are people actually wearing their masks appropriately? Is it covering their nose, their mouth, and on top of that, are the people being sanitary, um, as far as washing their hands? Are they making sure that they're not touching their mask and then touching their face? Because if they're not doing those things, properly, then wearing a mask really doesn't do anything but help the person you're next to. Um, so I thought that was quite interesting, and we can click on another state, um, and it's it's all going to show the same thing. Like Illinois, for instance. I mean, this is quite amazing. So they implemented their mask mandate around here, and you can clearly see it was working. But why is it going up so high? Is it because it's summertime and people just don't feel like wearing the mask? I have no idea. I feel like more clarification, more research would need to be done to ascertain what is going on. But as you can see, all the states combined, and there appears to be no correlation with wearing a mask and it actually mitigating the spread of COVID-19, which I thought was rather interesting. And this is just my dashboard. Um, that you click on California, for instance, and then it'll show their trends for positive over time and show their um, total positive cases and the metrics from the tree map. Okay, so these are my references. The COVID-19 coronavirus data source resource hub was where we got our starter workbook. Um, the second resource is actually the picture on the title page. I'll give Feldo credit for that. And the last reference that I used is where I got my data, where I extracted it, in case anyone's interested into following up on that and maybe doing some more research on their own. This concludes my presentation, and thank you very much for your time.